Okay, so unless you've been under a rock for the last 4 days, you may have seen the board of a listed company called DGL Group, whose chief executive, Simon Henry, is reported to refer to my food bag co-founder Nadia Lim as a bit of Eurasian fluff. And basically, this whole thing's turned into a massive gong show all over the show, and so it should. And one of the good things that I think has been amazing to see about this is so many women in power of influence stepping up and being like, stuff this noise, and actually saying something about it. And mutual connection with us as a friend of the show now, been very lucky to be joined by the CEO of the Institute of Directors, Kirsten Patterson, to have a bit more of a yarn about this, because she had a great post. Welcome to the show. Kia ora, Kirsten.
Kia ora, Robett. How are you?
I am, not gonna lie, last couple of days, gong show, but today I'm back at it. I'm firing, so I'm feeling good. How's the rugby going? I know you're at the. How's the game? You guys win? What happened?
Yeah, I just heard the top of the sports news there, and I was quite tempted to sort of add my own sports update. So yes, the 12-year-old Hutt Old Boys Marist team absolutely smashed their opposition in the first game of the season in Lower Hutt this morning. So very happy 12-year-old Kirsten Patterson played a pretty good game.
There you go. So you're the CEO of the Institute of Directors, and it says here, your vision is to be a world-class professional body at the heart of New Zealand's governance network, with a mission to inspire and equip people in governance to add value across New Zealand business and society. And obviously, everyone's had this bit of a rack up. You had a really interesting post that came out and it got a lot of love. So maybe let's, from a professional personal perspective, we can start there. When this first came out, you saw it, and your first reaction was what?
Couldn't believe it. Actually, I had to reread it 2 or 3 times, sort of put it down and then come back to it 2 or 3 times later. And the fact that it was pretty blatant, right? So often we hear about situations where someone might have said something and you think maybe they got misquoted. But on this particular example, this person said, you can quote me on this, and it's pretty clear what they've said, and it's entirely unacceptable.
Yeah. I was watching it when it first popped up. I'm like, nah, he's taking the piss. There is no way in 2022 you're that much of a muppet, regardless what business you're doing, to say something so egregious in public and not feel that the fury and wrath of humanity and just common sense is going to come after you. So what I think was amazing was 2 things I saw. In the past, and I don't know if this is just a perspective from being a male looking at it, in the last 5 or so years, it's been awesome to see more women in leadership positions and women in powerful positions stepping up publicly and just throwing down, right? And it was really awesome to see a bunch of key leaders do the same thing. What was your the action, I guess, has been swift. What do you think message this is sending to the ecosystem right now with all the momentum going towards it? What message do you think this is sending?
Yeah, I think there's a pretty clear message, and everyone understands this is not okay, right? Like, we've got a pretty clear situation here of somebody who's made some entirely inappropriate comments. There's just no place for this sort of language and these sort of behaviours in Aotearoa, New Zealand, or in any boardroom. The tone starts at the top, and this tone's just not okay. So it was great to see people speaking out. I think that there's a huge community expectation now that actually our business leaders will speak out. Edelman Trust Barometer did some research. 86% of the community expect CEOs and business leaders to speak out on social issues. We asked our boards that same question and what was their view. Over half of the boards agreed and said that, the board and the CEO should be speaking out on these things. Our business leaders are really visible now. They've got leadership roles, and we look to them to provide, commentary on what's okay.
So it's been 4 days. The board hasn't said shit. Simon hasn't come out and said anything. So what does this say about the actual company and business itself if after this long still nothing's actually been addressed when it's clearly they're clearly in the wrong? What do you think is actually happening? Why would a company not be front-footing this and begging for forgiveness for being kooks?
Yeah, so there's some media coverage overnight that indicates that the board has put out an apology and accepted that the comments are absolutely inappropriate and have expressed their severe disappointment to the CEO. But then Nadia Lim herself has confirmed actually she hasn't received any apology. Turns out that the apology is being placed on the courier. Hasn't actually sort of been made directly to her. One's, being couriered from goodness knows where to get to her. So, look, I think the board's been a little bit exposed, perhaps not had the same information that they should have had. They've had to come out and sort of say, we thought the apology had been emailed, we now understand it had been couriered. So, that's another misstep. But they're in a pretty difficult situation here. I think so, one of the things that's kind of probably important for people to note is that even though this is a publicly listed company and so therefore bound by kind of rules and expectations, and if you look at their website, there's lots of information on there about their diversity policy and how they don't stand for any inappropriate behaviour. But the reality is, in this particular situation, the CEO is also the founder of the company and he's the majority shareholder. He owns it well over 50% of the shares. So it's a difficult one for the board in terms of, where does that power balance lie? And that's why it's really important we have strong boards so that they can provide that governance and oversight.
So I was looking back through the comments, specifically how then he said, on the record, and he was doubling down on it as he said it, being very well aware. Mm. Do you think that this unfortunately showed a still clearly present dark underbelly to a lot of the thoughts and opinions that exist in the C-suite when it comes to race or gender?
Look, I hope that's really not the case. And in terms of the board, and the CEOs that we get to see, they're absolutely outstanding leaders. And I think we've seen that by the number who have actually spoken out to say that's not okay. And this is not how we want to see, New Zealand Aotearoa and the sort of culture that we want to have in our workplaces. But, it has highlighted some pockets of our community where we need to have a deeper conversation. So if there's any silver lining out of all of this, is that hopefully we as a community can sort of go, actually, no, that's not okay. Here's the line. By all means comment on the commercial aspects of the business that he was trying to comment on. But, you just can't make these kind of comments, not because it's not okay publicly, because they're just not okay full stop.
Yeah. So similar, not similar, but say in the States with Donald Sterling from the Clippers who came out with those racist remarks that basically got him to sell the team and got kicked out of ownership. I was listening to one of the commentators, an ex-player, and he was a bit of a legend. He said, you know what? Him selling the team that way was the worst thing that could have happened, because all that you've done is you've just put all of the dark, nasty conversations to the back benches, and they're going to stay hidden instead of bringing those tough conversations to the forefront. And what he was hoping would have happened, he said, look, he doesn't get to grow from this unless he gets a chance to learn through it, and by exposing him to these deeper conversations. So I saw some of the commentary from Nadia and stuff saying, actually sit down and have a corridor about it, actually, chat through and actually give it a bit more of a chance. And I see it from both sides where, obviously things are, you can't just go saying stuff like that. I understand that. But at the same time, if everything's cancelled for every time someone does something, everyone's going to get cancelled. In saying that, it's pretty telling when he doubles down before he says the comment, and then 4 days later, he hasn't personally apologized, that he's probably doubling down on it. So who knows? So what do you think that other business leaders and the business community will learn from this, specifically with not only the way it's been dealt with, but also the feedback and the backlash that's come against it?
Yeah, I think you're right. We've got to be really careful in terms of this cancel culture, and it's not about a cancel culture. It's about an accountability culture, right? And accountability comes with conversations, and it also comes with reflection. It comes with growth, and frankly, it comes with apologies and a bit of maturity. So I think that those are the silver linings, if any, out of this particular scenario. As you've indicated, there's been a number of FCs, the women also have offered to have a conversation with the CEO and the board and provide some perspective and growth for them as well. So, I think that's a great approach, but that's still got to come from, some self-awareness to even accept that offer. And that also comes with an aspect of humility, right? You've got to be able to accept that hey, maybe I've made a mistake here. And I think we expect that of our leaders of today, don't we? I think we've moved on from that sort of rock star kind of, 80s CEO to actually expecting our leaders to be, a lot more socially aware, to be a lot more self-aware, and sometimes be a little bit vulnerable.
Yeah, I totally agree. Before we go, I've got one last little question for you. You're the CEO of the Institute of Directors. You've probably got a few little interesting power circle, little WhatsApp groups, or iMessage groups, whatever. Amongst the secret back channel banter, what's the percentage of females in your circle that are like, stuff this guy, and the other percentages are like, let's try and help this guy? What's the current read of the room in terms of the back channels?
It's a great question. And it's not just women, right? So, there's a number of male leaders and male directors who have already come out, publicly also through their own networks, confirming, the kind of cultures that they want to create and that this isn't okay. As the kind of situation progresses and as the board and people respond, then people will make their own kind of personal views. But I think there's a good awareness out there of how difficult these situations can be, and that, people can learn and grow from these if there is, they've got to come halfway, right?
Yeah.
So someone's prepared to step forward and say, hey, I've made a mistake, I need to do better. Let's have a conversation about that. But, this is a business that's primarily been working, in a B2C environment. They probably haven't had as much kind of public exposure. They haven't been listed for that long. It's only sort of been just over a year or so, and this is a new operating environment for them, and they're going to have to get up to speed pretty quickly with what modern governance is all about.
Well, let's see how the next couple of days goes. Does he, put out the olive branch and get on his knees and be a good human and realize the errors of his ways, or does he double down and feel the wrath and fury of the shareholders and the board? We shall find out. I really appreciate your time, Kirsten. Thanks so much for joining us. I know you had the rugby on, so well done for the win and for the time on here. So absolute legend. Appreciate you.
Fantastic. Have a great day.
Thanks, KP. Epic. So coming after the break, that was a great chat, by the way. So good. Very interesting dynamic to be following. If you have only been around a rock, get under and check it out. It has been very interesting. I think the lesson from this team, it's pretty simple. Don't be a duck. Don't say dumb stuff. Just be smart and be a good human about it. Coming up after the break, I'm telling you about a young buck launching the first ever escape room business in Gizzy. Epic. This is Robett, live, episode 309. You're on Today FM.